This place has been repeatedly devastated by wild boars. Fields are torn apart, fences collapse, and the damage returns season after season. Small traps only catch a few individuals, while the rest of the herd quickly learns to avoid them and becomes even more aggressive. We realized we could no longer deal with the problem in a fragmented way. Together with local farmers, a collective decision was made to build a large trap strong enough to capture the entire herd at once. This was not just a solution, it was a turning point to finally end the long cycle of destruction. While the sunlight was still strong, we began constructing the trap. Heavy steel panels were carried out and assembled into a sealed circular structure. Every joint was tightened carefully, and each post was driven deep into the dry ground. The sound of hammers striking metal echoed sharply through the still air. From the outside, it looked like nothing more than a cold steel frame. But in reality, it was a massive lock, waiting for the exact moment to close. Once the structure was complete, we installed infrared cameras around the area, mounting them high on tree trunks to monitor every path leading inside. Everything was prepared quickly, but with absolute precision. The final step was baiting. Bags of corn were opened, releasing a sweet scent that drifted through the late afternoon air. We scattered the corn to form a faint trail, leading from the outside deep into the trap. Step by step, the herd would be guided inward without realizing it. When everything was done, the area returned to silence. Only the lingering scent of corn remained, and somewhere in the forest, sharp noses had already begun to pick up the familiar smell. As night fell, the forest seemed completely still. But that silence brought no sense of safety. Then, movement appeared on the screen. The wild boars had arrived. The lead boar stepped forward, moving slowly, sniffing the air as it advanced. Behind it, others emerged one by one, different sizes, forming a line heading toward the trail. Wild boars have strong instincts and sharp awareness of their surroundings. But tonight, hunger and the scent of corn overpowered any sense of danger. Led by the dominant boar, the entire herd moved in without hesitation. When the last one crossed the boundary, we confirmed the whole herd was inside. And at that exact moment, the gate was triggered. The sound of metal crashing echoed sharply, shattering the silence of the forest. Instantly, everything turned chaotic. The herd panicked, rushing in all directions, slamming into the steel walls, colliding with each other in desperation. The ground was torn apart under their force. The metal structure shook violently. The strongest boars tried to break through, but it was useless against the carefully engineered barrier. Some smaller ones attempted to climb or jump over, but the height of the fence held them back. Panic spread through the entire herd as they realized there was no escape. Before dawn broke, we approached the trap. The scene had completely changed from the night before. The boars were no longer thrashing violently. Many were exhausted, breathing heavily. Some stood still, nearly motionless from fatigue. Yet their instincts still pushed them to react at any movement. More than 20 wild boars had been captured in a single attempt, a result that once seemed impossible. For the first time, the farmers could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Before opening the trap, the entire structure was checked one last time. Every joint, every lock was carefully inspected to ensure there were no risks. The team observed the herd's behavior to avoid unexpected situations. As the handling process began, panic flared up again, but every step followed strict safety procedures. Specialized equipment was used to minimize risks for both people and nearby livestock. And in that moment, everyone understood, success did not come from luck. It came from choosing the right strategy from the very beginning and seeing it through to the end.
The most concerning issue is not the presence of wild boars, but the timing of their appearance. When the crops have reached their critical ripening stage, just a few short nights are enough to wipe out months of accumulated effort. Everything happens so quickly that there is no time to react. The greatest challenge at this point is no longer scale or quantity, but time itself, a factor slipping away at an uncontrollable pace. At the peak of the harvest season, every delayed decision can cost an entire field. Many solutions once considered effective are now revealing clear weaknesses. Traditional traps can be deployed quickly, but they struggle to control an entire herd at the same time. Wild boars not only move in groups but are also highly observant and quick to respond to changes in their surroundings. If even a few individuals pause and become alert, the entire herd will immediately slow down, change direction, or retreat altogether. Under increasing pressure, the approach has gradually shifted toward a more proactive direction. Instead of handling individual animals separately, the focus is now on controlling space from the outset. Key areas are established as tightly controlled zones, along field edges, on familiar movement routes, and around natural attractors. The goal is no longer to react when boars appear, but to limit all entry and exit possibilities before any damage can occur. When the herd moves into a pre-established area, everything unfolds almost instantly. The surrounding space is narrowed in a calculated manner, preventing them from dispersing as they normally would. A few alert individuals may try to stay outside or find a way to retreat, but most are already within the controlled range. The destructive pressure is significantly reduced in a single transition. Chaos disappears, giving way to an order established at the most critical moment. The most visible effectiveness often appears in transition zones, where natural space is constricted. Here, the herd has almost no opportunity to disperse and is forced to move in predetermined directions. This not only reduces immediate risk but also limits the likelihood of returning in the following days. A window of safety is created, sufficient to complete the harvest without interruption. At the same time, control zones arranged around familiar points also function as a guided routing mechanism. The boars approach places they recognize, unaware that all exits have already been calculated in advance. This sense of familiarity helps stabilize the process, reducing panic and minimizing unnecessary disturbance. The entire operation is maintained in a balanced state, where efficiency is prioritized above all. At this critical stage, time becomes more decisive than any tool. There is no need for haste or escalation of tension. Every step is carried out in a clear, deliberate sequence, aimed at maintaining stability across the entire surrounding area. Control does not come from pressure, but from minimizing unnecessary impacts. The area is then cleared in a systematic manner. Equipment is strategically positioned along the edges, and transportation is carried out smoothly without interruption. The cultivated space is completely isolated from the risk of re-entry. The ground surface returns to a stable state, clean, controlled, and ready for the next phase. And when the final gate closes, what matters most is not the numbers or measurable results. The true value lies in the fact that the field has been protected at the most critical moment. By staying one step ahead, not through force, but through strategy, the farmer not only secures the current harvest but also reduces risks for the seasons to come. It is a quiet approach, yet one capable of making a profound difference.
In just a few days, a farm can shift from a stable state to a completely uncontrolled situation. There are no clear warning signs, no immediate outbreak, just small changes that gradually appear and spread. And by the time the problem is recognized, everything has already gone too far. That is the reality many places have faced with African swine fever, a virus that spreads rapidly and is extremely difficult to control. In that context, wild boars continue to act as a dangerous link in the chain of transmission. They move in groups, cross multiple areas, and come into contact with various food sources. When carrying pathogens, they can unintentionally bring the virus close to livestock farms. Unlike obvious threats, this type of transmission happens silently, making it difficult for farmers to detect until symptoms begin to appear within the herd. On many farms, the initial signs are often very subtle. A few animals may eat less, move less, or show unusual behavior. But within a short period, the situation can change completely. Under such pressure, control measures are quickly implemented to limit contact between infection sources and livestock, while also ensuring the safety of surrounding areas. The biggest shift lies in the approach. Instead of waiting for an outbreak to occur, farmers begin taking preventive action early. Fence systems are built not only to block wild boars but also to serve as an important layer of biosecurity control. Access to farming areas is also strictly managed, minimizing the risk of bringing pathogens in from outside. not every situation requires massive traps. In many areas, a compact steel cage like this is enough to make a difference. A solid square steel frame combined with high-strength metal mesh creates an enclosed space where, once entered, the chance of escape is nearly zero. The mechanism relies on a simple but effective one-way door. When a boar enters to reach the bait inside, the door automatically drops and locks behind it. Any further movement only tightens the door, leaving almost no chance of escape. The enclosed structure also limits visibility, helping reduce panic and preventing the animal from crashing violently into the trap walls. This type of trap is especially suitable for areas near residential zones or places where individual animals need to be controlled. Setting the trap does not require complex equipment, but it does demand precision in choosing the right location, usually along familiar trails or spots showing signs of rooting and foraging. When properly camouflaged and placed correctly, results can appear within the first few nights without much adjustment. In many cases, simple solutions can deliver surprisingly effective results. Methods like cable snares or tree-fix traps are still widely used in certain areas. Users only need to select a large tree, secure the trap firmly to the trunk, place bait, and cover it with leaves for camouflage. The entire process can be completed quickly. The cost is low, but when placed correctly and well hidden, these methods can still achieve significant effectiveness. More importantly, they can be deployed rapidly across large areas without major investment, making them especially suitable for regions facing constant intrusion. When maintained consistently and adjusted based on herd behavior, control efficiency improves significantly over time. Though simple, when used properly, they can become a key part of an overall management strategy. What matters most is that all measures must be carried out in a controlled and carefully considered manner. The goal is not only to reduce disease risk, but also to maintain long-term stability for both the ecosystem and farming operations. Will you choose to react after an outbreak occurs, or build a preventive system from the start? If you found this helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content.
In this area, the presence of wild boars is no longer a rare occurrence. Local authorities have repeatedly documented their approach toward farms and have even issued recommendations for population control to limit the growing damage. When the site was surveyed, all signs indicated that the situation had gone far beyond normal levels. The ground was torn into long strips, and the forest edge was covered with overlapping tracks of both adults and juveniles. A clear picture of an organized intrusion. The first step was not setting traps, but reading the terrain. An open patch of land was selected directly along a familiar movement route, with a line of trees behind providing natural cover and enough open space in front for the herd to enter without suspicion. This was not just a convenient location, it was the intersection of habit and opportunity. Once the location was determined, the installation process began. Steel posts were driven deep into the ground, forming a solid and stable frame. The edges of the mesh were secured tightly to the ground, eliminating any chance of being pushed up from below. Every small detail was carefully inspected. A single gap could cause the entire system to fail within minutes of chaos. After completion, the trap door was left open. The next phase was to place bait and wait. Cameras captured the moment mature wild boar approached. It moved slowly, stopping several times to scent the air before stepping inside. There was no rush, only caution. When the right moment came, the mechanism was triggered. The net dropped quickly, cleanly, and precisely. The animal reacted instantly. Turning to find an escape, but every direction was blocked. Although only one individual was captured, this test confirmed that the structure functioned exactly as designed. It was a critical validation step before scaling up. Once the system was deemed stable, more traps of the same design were deployed in areas showing the highest levels of damage. Each location was adjusted to fit the terrain, but the core principle remained unchanged. Place the trap along established movement routes and create a sense of safety before activation. The nets were left open for several nights, allowing the herd to develop a habit of entering and exiting without suspicion. Everything unfolded in silence and patience. In the eastern sector, thermal cameras began detecting movement. A few individuals appeared first, entering the trap area as if it were routine behavior. They fed, moved around, and gradually ventured deeper inside. When the number inside reached an optimal level and no individuals remained outside, the signal was triggered. The net closed in an instant. The sound of heavy footsteps pounded against the ground, dust rising under infrared light. Solid bodies slammed into the mesh edges, creating powerful vibrations. In the first few seconds, everything descended into chaos, but the structure held firm. Multiple adult individuals were contained within. Inside was a herd of mixed sizes, from fully grown adults to juveniles. The ground beneath had been completely torn apart, revealing how intense their attempts to escape during the night had been. They constantly turned, reacting to every small sound. The handling team did not approach hastily. A safe distance was maintained. The net was carefully inspected, The entire process followed a pre-established plan. What matters is not the number of animals captured, but how the problem is addressed. If individuals are removed one by one, the rest of the herd will quickly adapt and return. In many rural areas, wild boars initially appear as a minor nuisance, but over time, their numbers grow rapidly, the damage spreads, and the ecosystem begins to lose balance. Fields are torn apart, crops destroyed, and the risks to humans become increasingly evident. At that point, control is no longer optional. It becomes necessary, and it must be carried out properly and at the right time.
Pro customer in Alabama has been using our mic.
At first, everything appeared only as faint signals. A few patches of soil were slightly disturbed. Faint footprints blended into the damp ground, and flattened grass suggested that something had quietly passed through during the night. No one truly considered it a significant threat, but within just a few days, those scattered details gradually formed a clearer picture. A herd of wild boars was silently establishing a movement route right along the edge of the production area. Their movement was not random. Every action followed a familiar route. From the forest edge, they moved along the tree lines, crossed low-lying areas, and headed straight toward the most accessible food sources. When one individual found food, the entire herd would return along the same path. And once that habit was established, most deterrent methods became nearly ineffective. Instead of reacting immediately, The first step was systematic observation. Cameras were placed at locations showing the clearest signs, where the soil had been repeatedly turned over, where fences had been bent under pressure, and where trails kept reappearing. After just a few nights, the herd's entire behavioral pattern was gradually revealed. They appeared at nearly fixed times, moved in stable formations, with adult individuals leading and the younger ones following closely. Behind at a suitable area was selected as the intervention point. It was not too obvious, yet close enough to the movement route to avoid altering the herd's natural behavior. Here, a mechanical trapping system was installed. The trap frame was firmly secured, and the door was designed to allow entry but prevent exit. Every detail had to be precise, as even a minor error could cause the entire plan to fail. Bait was placed at the center, but not intended to attract them immediately. In the early days, the trap door was kept fully open. The herd gradually became familiar with the space, without sensing danger. They moved in and out naturally, slowly developing a sense of safety. This was the most critical phase, when the herd's alertness was naturally lowered. Night after night, the number of individuals entering the trap area increased significantly. Larger animals began moving deeper inside, while the younger ones followed without hesitation. Cameras recorded the entire process, helping determine the exact moment when the herd was most fully present. There was no rush. Everything was calculated to achieve maximum effectiveness in a single attempt. And then the moment arrived, when the entire herd was inside. The triggering mechanism was activated. The trap door dropped swiftly, sealing off all exits. There was no loud noise, no prolonged chaos, just a decisive and precise movement. The entire herd was contained within a controlled space.
Fuzzy-eared mama. If you count the 4 to 10 piglets twice a year, somewhere around 4 to 10, those females in that bunch.
The key advantage of this method lies not in the number of individuals captured, but in its ability to break the recurring cycle. When the entire herd is removed at once, the pressure on the surrounding environment is significantly reduced. There are no more nightly returns, no more accumulating damage over time. Afterward, the entire handling process is carried out under strict procedures, from ensuring safety and securing the area to transportation. Every step is prepared in advance. There is no element of randomness. This is not merely an isolated action, but part of a long-term strategy to maintain balance between production and the natural environment. Notably, when such a system is implemented correctly, its effectiveness does not end with a single use. Nearby areas begin adopting similar methods based on observation, behavioral analysis, and controlled intervention. Because in the end, the issue is not the presence of the herd, but how humans respond. When actions are guided by understanding rather than impulse, everything changes. It is no longer a prolonged confrontation in the dark, but a clear, strategic, and increasingly effective process of control with each implementation.
In many rural areas, wild boars don't appear randomly but follow familiar routes, repeating them night after night. They break through fences, move along field edges, and can destroy entire crops within just a few hours. The biggest mistake is treating early signs as insignificant. Once a steady food source is found, the whole herd keeps returning, making control much harder if the response comes too late. Security cameras captured a scene that left people no time to react. In broad daylight, an adult wild boar suddenly appeared in the city and charged at residents. Everyone panicked and tried to get out of its way as it moved forward. It all happened within seconds, yet clearly showed how the line between nature and urban life is slowly fading. Instead of rushing in, the first step is to survey the area and identify the herd's paths. Transition zones between forest edges and farmland, where tracks are dense, are often the most effective trap locations. Setting traps in the wrong place not only lowers success but also makes the herd more alert. Once they sense danger, the entire strategy must be rebuilt from scratch at a higher level of difficulty. Steel foothold traps are used to control individuals that move alone or ahead of the herd. These traps are placed along familiar trails where footprints are dense. What matters is not just the mechanism, but how well the setup blends into the environment. The soil covering must look natural and undisturbed, since even a small irregular detail can cause wild boars to change direction instantly.
Oh yeah.
The effectiveness of foothold traps depends heavily on managing human scent and traces. The trapping area must remain undisturbed, avoiding footprints or foreign smells. Local soil is usually used to cover the trap and preserve its natural scent. When set correctly, the trap can capture a lead or cautious individual, disrupting the movement of the entire group. In areas where wild boars have become wary of metal, handcrafted wooden traps are a better option. These traps are built from simple wooden pieces, using natural materials to create a familiar feel. The mechanism relies on gravity or pulling force, without exposing metal parts. This reduces the chance of detection, especially for herds that have encountered traps before. Setting a wooden trap is not just about building a frame, but also guiding behavior. Bait is placed deep inside to force the animal into the trigger zone. Distance, height, and approach direction must match its movement habits. Once triggered, the structure collapses or locks quickly. This simplicity helps the trap work reliably across different terrains. When dealing with an entire herd, large corral traps are the most effective option. A circular or square frame is built with strong posts and enclosed with steel mesh, creating a space large enough to hold multiple animals at once. Unlike single traps, the goal is not speed but capturing the whole group in one attempt. This prevents the remaining animals from becoming alert and changing their behavior in future encounters. The strategy with corral traps always begins with an acclimation phase. During the first nights, the gate is kept fully open, allowing the herd to move in and out freely. Bait is gradually placed from outside to inside to build a sense of safety. Cameras help track numbers and frequency.
What's up, big boy?
Only when most of the herd forms a habit of entering is the gate triggered at the right moment, ensuring maximum effectiveness in one attempt. In the end, no single trap is the only solution. Effectiveness comes from combining methods based on the herd's behavior. When every step is guided by observation and patience, control becomes proactive instead of reactive. If you found this useful, leave a comment and don't forget to follow for more strategies ahead. Only within a few hours, a herd of wild boars turned an entire season's harvest into ruins, causing over $50,000 in damage. By the time morning came, nearly all the hard work of the season had been wiped out. With no other choice left, the farmer was forced to build the largest trap ever constructed. But can they capture the entire herd in a single attempt? Or will everything continue to be destroyed in the days ahead? This video documents the entire process of building a 30-foot diameter circular trap, a structure large enough to target an entire herd instead of individual animals. The goal is clear: capture at least 30 boars in one go. Because if only part of the herd is caught, the survivors will become more cautious, change their behavior, and become nearly impossible to trap again. For a 500-acre farm suffering continuous losses, this is no longer an option, it's a necessity. This situation is not isolated. In Texas, wild boars have become a widespread issue across the entire state. They appear from the dry western hills, spread across cotton and cornfields in central regions, and reach the dense river forests in the east. Deep hoof prints in moist soil are no longer isolated signs, but evidence of entire herds moving in organized patterns at night. With more than 2.5 million animals, Texas is now considered the epicenter of the wild boar crisis in the United States. They live in groups, called sounders, typically ranging from 10 to over 30 individuals, moving mainly at night and possessing an extremely sharp sense of smell. Because of their herd behavior and high level of alertness, traditional control methods have become less effective. Hunting individuals or setting small traps no longer works when the target is an entire sounder. That is why large-scale trapping systems have been introduced, with net traps standing out as a flexible solution designed to capture the whole group instead of separating individuals. Unlike rigid steel structures, net traps use a circular framework made of T-posts, covered with a heavy-duty mesh capable of absorbing strong impacts. In the initial stage, the net is suspended above the ground, creating an opening that allows the boars to enter freely without feeling confined. Bait is placed at the center, forcing the entire herd to move deep inside. Over several nights, infrared cameras monitor movement patterns and confirm when the full herd is present. Once the habit is established, the system is triggered remotely, dropping the net instantly and enclosing the entire area. The soft mesh reduces impact when the herd panics while still containing them without creating rigid collision points like steel. However, in areas with high boar density and severe damage pressure, a more robust solution is often deployed alongside large-scale steel traps. A circular structure made of 4-gauge steel is built like a true fortress. The round design eliminates sharp corners, creating an open space feel that encourages the herd to enter confidently. A steel gate, 8 feet wide and weighing up to 150 pounds, is connected via LTE and can be triggered remotely by phone. The entire system is anchored with steel posts driven 90 centimeters into the ground to withstand the immense force of adult boars. Around 90 kilograms of corn is spread daily to maintain their return habit. During the first 3 to 5 nights, the gate remains open, allowing the herd to become familiar with the environment without sensing danger. Only when infrared cameras confirm that the entire herd has moved deep inside does the operator activate the closing mechanism from as far as 6.6 kilometers away. And once the gate drops, every escape route is cut off instantly. There is no turning back, no way out. The final result proves the effectiveness of the entire process. 32 wild boars captured in a single attempt, with a total estimated weight of over 2,500 pounds. This number not only reduces immediate damage, but also prevents the risk of the same herd returning in the future.
African swine fever, or ASF, is an extremely dangerous virus for both domestic pigs and wild boars, and what makes it especially alarming is its ability to survive for a very long time in the environment. In cold conditions or in meat products that have not been properly processed, the virus can remain alive for hundreds of days, silently extending the risk of large-scale transmission. Although ASF does not pose a danger to humans, it is a serious threat to the pig industry and the global pork supply. The virus can spread through direct contact between wild boars and domestic pigs, through contaminated meat products, as well as through polluted environments. Because of how quickly it can spread and its impact on entire herds, whenever a suspected outbreak appears, specialist teams must immediately arrive in protective gear to control the site, prevent the risk from spreading further, and protect biosecurity in the surrounding area. For that reason, the damage in my uncle's field was no longer just a story of crop loss. When wild boars began appearing in large numbers around the land, the danger was not limited to rows of corn being torn apart, but also to the possibility that they could become a link carrying disease closer to livestock areas. A herd of wild boars passing through the farm could leave behind not only tracks, mud, and trampled crops, but also the fear of silent transmission that the human eye cannot see. That is why we could no longer keep reacting in a piecemeal way, dealing with the problem one night at a time, and instead had to move toward a more systematic management approach, where every step, from observation and movement control to trap deployment, had to serve a larger purpose: protecting crops, protecting livestock, and reducing biosecurity risks across the entire area. After completing the risk assessment and setting the traps, we moved into the stage that required the most patience, baiting. We used clean fermented corn, a scent that strongly attracts wild boars. Keeping the bait point consistent over multiple nights helped gather the whole herd into a predictable movement pattern, while also reducing environmental disturbance and limiting the risk of them spreading out to other farms. By the third day, they still stood at a distance, sniffing cautiously. By the fifth day, the boldest ones finally began to move closer and tasted. We kept watching until the 10th day. After several nights without detecting any danger, their level of caution gradually dropped. They kept coming back again and again, slowly treating the place as a safe feeding spot. And when the wild boars had lost most of their caution, the trap system also entered a ready state. That night was the decisive moment. Images from the cameras were transmitted live to the monitoring center, while we relied on the terrain and the size of the herd to choose the right moment to activate the trap. And along a narrow trail, a leg snare had been set at exactly the point where a wild boar usually stepped. This was not the kind of trap meant to hold an entire herd, but a method designed to target single individuals that broke away from the group or moved through a tight passage. After a long wait, one wild boar slowly advanced along the familiar trail. The moment its front leg touched the exact spot, the trap instantly tightened and held it in place. The whole moment happened very quickly, bringing many days of observation and waiting for the right time to an end. The full herd control strategy had finally proven effective. The next morning, the entire handling process would be carried out humanely and in full accordance with biosecurity standards. Protecting the environment, livestock, and human safety always remains the top priority. Because the ultimate goal is not just to stop immediate damage, but to build a long-term management system, carry out responsible population control, and maintain ecological balance. That is the sustainable solution for protecting crops and moving toward safer coexistence between humans and nature.